Happy New Year, people. It's Bills by the Numbers, where we let the stats tell you where the Bills are at. We're presented by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Coming up, is there a preferred first-round opponent for the Bills for Super Wild Card Weekend? We discuss. And what might be on the to-do list for the Bills to be fully prepped for the postseason. And as always, we'll have our one burning question. How'd we get to Week 18 already? Welcome to 2025, everybody. Happy New Year. Bills Wall of Famer Steve Tasker, Bills play-by-play man Chris Brown with you. And while the Bills will be playing out the string in Week 18 this weekend in New England, we examine what Buffalo could be facing on Super Wild Card Weekend as the AFC's number 2 seed in the playoffs. Heading into Week 18, there are 3 potential opponents Buffalo could face in the wild card round: Cincinnati, Denver, and Miami. Denver enters Week 18 in a win-and-in scenario. The Broncos host the Chiefs in Denver, and Andy Reid will likely be playing a lot of backups, knowing the Chiefs have clinched the top seed and the bye in the AFC playoffs. So let's examine this potential opponent first, Steve. At first blush, what strikes you about the Broncos with a rookie quarterback in Bo Nix and a veteran Super Bowl-winning coach in Sean Payton?
Well, they certainly got the right recipe. They got a really good defense. They've got a talented young quarterback and a head coach who's been there before. I think what Sean Payton's going to do with Bo Nix is going to give them a shot at being that team that really does challenge the Chiefs in the AFC West. The talent set that Bo Nix brings to the table is something that Sean Payton never had when he was down in New Orleans when he won a world championship and went to another Super Bowl with Drew Brees. Nix can run the ball. He's an athlete. He's got a big, strong arm. And he's like a Josh Allen type of player. He does not have the quick decision-making ability that Brees does. Maybe not quite the accurate arm that Brees did. But Sean Payton knows how to use that skill set as well as any head coach out there. Sean Payton is a brilliant offensive mind, and he's going to maximize Bo Nix. And with a defense like the one they've got, that's a recipe that's going to take them deep.
Yeah, I mean, they did suffer some bad injuries on the defensive side of the ball, and it's compromised their level of effectiveness there. And the other Achilles heel for them, I think, is their inability to run the ball with any measure of consistency. They've had a tough time doing that, and if you get in a bad weather game,
right,
they could have issues there. Statistically speaking, the Broncos have defended the run well all season long, where they've ranked in the top 10 almost all year on defense. Right now they rank 8th in the league in run defense, and they lead the league in sacks with 58. They are also exceptional in defending the red zone, where they are a top 5 unit, currently allowing touchdowns to their opponents less than 47% of the time on red zone possessions. That's good for 4th best in football. But we know Coach McDermott has a good history against rookie quarterbacks. And one of the areas, as I said, where Denver has struggled a bit is on third down conversions, where they rank 18th, only 37% conversion rate. Do you feel confident that Buffalo's defensive staff can come up with some exotic looks on third down to cross up Bo Nix should this matchup happen?
Sure. But the Bills have struggled on third down defensively.
Yes.
That's the problem. It's weakness on weakness. I would say... I would give Bill. I always give the defense the edge in that because it's hard to decipher it. And the Bills are a playmaking defense. I think you can expect them to do that once in a while in this game if they were to meet. And I would tend to tilt it towards the coaching staff of the other team rather than the rookie quarterback on the Broncos, Bo Nix, as good as he has played. But I think that is a critical question in how this game would turn out.
Yeah, third down.
And I think you can expect it to go both ways at different times in the game. So I think it would kind of come out as a coin flip. They'll probably convert some third downs on a drive or two that may end up in some points, and I think the Bills could get some 3-and-outs on them. Then you got to see what happens in the rest of the game. But it's a really good question. I don't know that there's a real answer to until you see it play out. But the Bills would throw some effort, and like they have, they're throwing some effort into the third down defenses, they're called, depending on, it's all opponent, dependent, what type, whether it's pressure, whether it's coverage, man zone. I think I would give the edge to the Bills coaching staff and Bob Babbage, particularly as the game wears on, where they have been so good at adjusting.
Right, second half especially. And look, as much respect as I have for Sean Payton, in his long and distinguished resume, as good a game plan or as many answers as he can provide Bo Nix. Bo Nix is the one that's got to go out there and do it. And even though the guy's got more than 60 starts in college and played in some high-level games, I don't think he's seen an atmosphere like this here during the playoffs, and that will be an adjustment for him as well. Second possible opponent, the Miami Dolphins, who with a win over the Jets and a Denver loss would get the 7 seed. Buffalo has seen Miami twice this season, obviously, winning 31-10 and 30-27, needing a 61-yard field goal from Tyler Bass to beat them the second time here in Buffalo. Beating a team a third time in a season, as we know, Steve, is difficult. And Devon Achane, Steve, has kind of become the focal point of this offense late in the season. It's not Tyreek Hill anymore. It is Achane, who has been a persistent problem for the Bills to defend, along with everybody else, and it's more as a pass catcher in space than as a running back. What would your thoughts be on a matchup with Miami?
This might be the matchup I like the least of the 3 possible ones, be it Denver, Miami, and Cincinnati. I think this Miami team knows the Bills all too well. They have all too much internal motivation not to get thumped a third time. And this last time that the Bills played Miami here in Buffalo, Miami's offense was very good, very good. That matchup is the one I think that makes the Bills most vulnerable to, because they're so well known by their opponent, and their opponent's got some guys. Like you said, Achane is a little bit like it's the Dolphins' James Cook, dynamic athlete, and they've got a guy that can use him. So if you're not buttoned up when you get him, then of course they've got something the Bills don't. That's Tyreek Hill, who is he takes the lid off and creates space for Jalen Waddle, the whole gang. Miami has some weapons that force you to play defense in a certain way. You got to keep a lid on it. You got to keep 2 safeties back at least. If not, go cover 3, go 3 safeties. And that creates space for Jalen Waddle and Achane, and it's a lot to cover.
Yeah, and the familiarity, yes, it's a problem. The Bills' history against the Dolphins is fantastic, especially recently. But all that being said, the Dolphins aren't coming in here unaware of what the atmosphere is going to be like, unaware of what the weather is going to be like, although the weather could play a factor also. We know, too, his history in poor weather. Anything under 40 degrees, I don't think he has a victory. Or if he does, he has 1. I think he's like 0-8 in sub-40-degree temperatures, and it's going to be below that by a wide margin by the time we get to Wild Card Weekend, because the weather's taking a major dip here in the next week. So that's a factor also. The thing that's most impressive to me about the Dolphins is how much their defense has improved under new coordinator Anthony Weaver. I don't think they had everything lined up the way they wanted. They had to overcome some veterans who were on reserve PUP, like Bradley Chubb, and then Jalen Phillips they lose.
Right.
You look at this, Miami is a top 5 defense overall in the league. Top 10 against the pass, top 5 against the run, top 5 in third down defense, and second in the league in red zone defense. New defensive coordinator Anthony Weaver, you got to tip your hat to him. He's done a really good job rounding that group into a more consistent unit. And Chop Robinson, their first-round pick, has been a force in the second half of his rookie season since taking on a full-time role. He has six sacks on the year. Cincinnati needs the most help to qualify for the postseason. They need to win in Week 18 against the Steelers in Pittsburgh, and then they need Denver and Miami to both lose. Their opponent Saturday, the Steelers, could have something to play for if the Ravens lose earlier in the day on Saturday, namely the AFC North title and a 3 seed.
A 3 seed, a home playoff game.
Yeah, if the Ravens win, the Steelers may not have much to play for, since it would mean the difference between the 5 and the 6 seed, though by winning, they would avoid playing Baltimore in the wild card round. They would go to Houston instead. To me, That's enough to play for the victory, but
Sure.
we'll see what Mike Tomlin decides to do based on how the Baltimore game plays out, which is earlier in the afternoon than the Steelers play. The Steelers playing at 4. So either way, if the Steelers can't win this game, they're on the road. So what about the Bengals, who have won 5 in a row to keep themselves in playoff contention right to the end?
Yes. I don't know. These games are Steelers are in, Baltimore's in. Sooner or later, you're going to have to deal with those guys. Cincinnati, they were at 1.4% chance to get in.
It's marginally better now.
Right. There's a reason for that to me. Their defense is not good enough.
Yeah.
All they need to do is have their offense just get off the field one time on a possession, and you beat this team. The Bengals are not the team they were 2 years ago.
Well, they're certainly not the complete team that they were 2 years ago.
And as much respect as I've got for Joe Burrow in that offense, he gets sacked a little too much. Their passing game is elite.
Yes.
Their receiver talent is elite. But I think that is a better matchup in some ways for the Buffalo defense that's playmaking. Go ahead and throw it a bunch. There's one of those times in there we're going to tip it and intercept it. We're going to tip it and knock it down on third down. We're going to get a sack. We're going to get a pressure. We're going to get whatever we need. It's the kind of game that the Bills' defense has been so good at because of their offenses.
Yeah.
Josh Allen, the Bills' ability to complement that defense. You give them an extra possession, they get points on it. They don't just change field position. It costs teams when they don't score against this Bills' offense. And this Bills' defense, with that offense playing with it, they know they're going to get a lot of throws. And they make plays too often to lose games. And I think that I think that Cincinnati matchup is one that, it's not desirable. None of these are desirable. They're all good teams. But that's the one that actually meshes with Buffalo, I think, that gives them a chance to maybe hang in there with those guys.
Yeah, maybe I'm just blind to quarterback stock here, because if you line up these 3 quarterbacks for the 3 potential wild card opponents, Burrow, Tua, and Bo Nix, I don't want to see Burrow. I'm sorry.
That's right.
That's the guy I don't want to see. I think Cincinnati is a much more beatable team, as evidenced by their record. I mean, they've got 8 losses. That's evident enough. They're not the team they were 2 years ago. I would agree with you wholeheartedly, but they have the number 1 passing offense in football. They're the 6th highest scoring team in football, even though they can't run the ball at all. And their defense sits in the bottom third of the league in most categories, and because of that, they're 29th in points allowed. So they've been one-dimensional almost every week. Just to stay in the game, they have to throw the ball.
Well,
because their defense can't stop anybody.
They're 8-8.
Yeah.
Their 8 teams have beaten them.
Yeah.
And, they just haven't been able to put it together well enough.
This is the thing that's shocking for me. Their defense, which still has Trey Hendrickson and Sam Hubbard at defensive end, is last in the league in sack percentage. Now, part of that is likely due to the fact that opponents are up on them score-wise. They don't have to throw as much, but it is a precipitous drop from where they used to be. And they have the 2nd worst red zone defense in the league, giving up touchdowns more than 2/3 of the time. We realize the quarterback isn't anything, but it is a big component as to why the Bengals are still alive in the playoff race. So let's pose the quarterback question to you, Steve. Which quarterback would you be most concerned to face of these 3? Let's just go quarterback only. Bo Nix, Tua.
It's got to be Joe.
Yeah.
He's proven.
He's a gamer, too.
And he's a gamer. And he's got they've built it around. They're fully formed offensively. Bo Nix, I still think they could use another big-time wide, that kind of stuff, maybe a running back for sure. So there's still some things around these quarterbacks they need. Tua,
he's limited.
It's January, and
it's January. I get it.
It's January.
I love it.
And it's
this is when
his
Tua
arm
turns into a pumpkin.
Yeah, he melts in the cold, right? So if you get that, Tua is a known commodity. They've got it fully formed around him like they do Joe Burrow, but here's the thing. They have a hard time, even with all their weapons, they have a hard time taking the lid off your defense because Tua has to let it go so early because of his arm. You can break on it. So he's got to release it quick or it's going to be a 10 or 15-yard completion in the air. He never has any air yards under his ball because he has to put such arc on him. The guy has to be completely open for the ball to get there in time before an athlete in the NFL can break on it and knock it away. I don't worry about that in January in Buffalo.
Right.
It's going to be a dink and dunk affair with Tua. So I would go Joe Burrow, then Tua, and then Bo Nix, but only because I think Tua and Burrow have this, they're fully formed NFL offenses, and they can find different ways to beat you.
Yeah,
I'm
more
not sure
weapons, too.
Yes, and I'm not sure that the Denver Broncos with Bo, have the running game and that kind of stuff to lean on the way the other two guys do.
Yeah, I mean, Courtland
I still
Sutton,
think Sean McPayton's got a lot of things he wants to change about and evolve in his offense.
Yeah, I mean, Courtland Sutton's a nice number one receiver for Denver, but beyond that, they don't have a ton of weapons. And you look at the weapons that Cincinnati has with Gesicki, Chase, and Higgins, and then you pivot to the Dolphins, and we know their weapons all too well, Achane, Hill, and Waddle. I mean, they have better weapons collectively on offense. So, yeah, I would tend to kind of side with you in terms of the order there. Burrow, Tua, Nix. We pivot now to the numbers game where Steve will be quizzed on NFL playoff trivia. Here we go. Question number 1. Since 2020, what NFL club has won the most wild card playoff games?
Since 2020?
Yeah.
Oh, Buffalo.
It is the Buffalo Bills indeed.
We win one every game, every year.
4 total. I forgot to write the total down. I had to do the math in my head there, which is never a good thing. Question number 2. Since 2020, how many times has the 2 seed reached the conference title game? Keep in mind, we've got 2 conferences, so you have 2 seeds every year.
3.
And you would nail it, Steve. 3 times. Buffalo did it in 2020,
right.
Kansas City in 2021, San Francisco in 2022. Steve is 2 for 2.
I'm on
Cooking here in 2025. Question number 3. Since 2020, how many 3 seeds have reached the conference title game?
One.
It's actually 3.
Oh.
3 again.
That's a trick question.
Trick question?
It's a trick answer.
Trick answer?
It's a trick.
Okay, we'll Google that and see what comes up. Cincinnati in 2022 was the 3 seed, went all the way to the Super Bowl. Kansas City and Detroit last year.
Right.
No team in 20 or 21 from the 3 seed collection advanced to the conference title game. And question 4, Steve, what has been the biggest playoff game blowout since 2020? I'm just looking for the point differential between the winner and the loser. What do you think was the biggest point differential blowout since 2020 in the playoffs?
I always go to the Bills-Patriots where it was 40, the Bills scored 47.
47 to 17.
But they scored 17. That's 30. That's the only one I can really, let me think. Yeah, I'll say the Bills, perfect game.
It was second. The 30-point differential is second. In 2022 divisional playoff, the Eagles crushed the Giants 38-7. That was a 31-point differential. And then last year, wild card playoff, Joe Flacco turned into a pumpkin when they went down to Houston. Houston crushed them 45-14, another 31-point decision.
Yeah.
So that just eked out the Bills' perfect play. That was a good guess, though.
It's the only one I could remember.
All right, so that is the numbers game. Not bad, Steve. You came out of the blocks hot there. Bills fans, get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Just download the app today to play any way you want. Plus, with live betting, you'll get updated odds on games that have already started. Best of all, you get paid your winnings fast. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the Buffalo Bills. Time now for our one burning question. The Bills currently lead the league in points scored off takeaways with 122. They need one more touchdown off a turnover to break the team record of 127 set in 2011. Will the Bills get it on Sunday with one Mitchell Trubisky at quarterback?
Well, here's the thing. I do think they'll get a turnover, particularly if Drake May, if they sit Drake May down and he doesn't play.
Joe Milton is playing.
And Joe Milton is playing.
Another rookie.
There is a chance for them to get that turnover, no question. The problem is you think they can score on those guys. And if they do, will they be able to punch it into the end zone? Will they just get a three-pointer, right, and get a, it'd be 124, 127, and get 2 field goals off 2 turnovers? Then it becomes dicey. So I would say probably not.
You're going to go with no. Okay.
I'm going to go with no because points off turnovers are now. It could happen that they get a pick 6, but yeah, I'm going to say no just because I think this is going to be a low-scoring game. I think points are going to be at a premium, and I don't know that either team is going to, with the quarterbacks there, are going to move the ball effectively. They're going to, and plus the game plan for the Bills is going to be, football 101. So
I get it.
I'm going to have to say I don't think so.
Steve and Joe Milton, I trust. Big arm quarterback. I think he's going to want to make an impression. Chance to play for the first time this year. He's probably going to start because Drake May's even got a finger injury from last week's game. He's limited in practice.
Amazingly, Drake May is too valuable to risk in a game that doesn't mean anything, plus that you get more out of by losing.
Yeah. So, I think Joe Milton's going to be slinging it around, and he's got a rocket arm, don't get me wrong, but it's not the most accurate, having watched him at Tennessee a good deal in college. So in Joe Milton, I trust. I think he's going to give a couple of freebies to the Bills, and I see 2 field goal drives.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Lifting them.
That's right.
To a new team record. They only need 6
that'll
points.
That'll tie the record, though.
No, they have 122.
Oh,
the record's 127.
Oh, all right.
2
so
field goals
5.
will do it.
All right.
We'll see.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very close.
I think
because
it'll be close.
Turnovers are the most unpredictable. They're the most pertinent stat out there.
Yeah.
That's not the score, and they're the most unpredictable.
Right. Our closing figure addresses the recent history against Buffalo's 3 potential wild card opponents. Denver has 1 win this season against a team over 500. That was Tampa Bay in Week 3. And Buffalo and Denver have faced each other just once in the postseason, the 91 AFC title game won by this guy's Bills 10-7. Buffalo has won 13 of the last 14 meetings with the Dolphins, counting the playoffs. Yeah! Miami has not won in Buffalo since Week 16 of the 2016 season when Tyrod Taylor and Matt Moore were the quarterbacks, and it took overtime to do so, and 10 men on the field on defense for Buffalo. And the Bills and Bengals with Josh Allen and Joe Burrow at quarterback have faced off twice, counting the playoffs. The 2022 divisional round playoff won by Cincinnati 27-10, just a few weeks after the Damar Hamlin incident canceled their regular season game in Week 17. And Week 9 last season in Cincinnati also won by the Bengals 24-18. Do with that what you will. That'll do it for this edition. If you haven't already, please subscribe to our show on whatever podcast platform you use, because when you need to know about the Bills, you need to check Bills by the Numbers. For Steve Tasker, I'm Chris Brown. Happy New Year, everybody.